The 1967 Battle of Abu Ageila was a military confrontation between the Israeli and Egyptian military in the Sinai Desert in June 1967. As part of the Six-Day War, the decisive defeat of the Egyptians was critical to the eventual loss of the entire Sinai Peninsula to Israeli forces. The head of the Israel Command was Ariel Sharon, who later became a prominent politician and Prime Minister of Israel. Background: the Israeli attack at Abu Ageila was part of the Israeli offensive into the Sinai Desert. This attack was led by the Southern Command, consisting of 3 divisions under Major Generals Israel Tal, Avraham Yoffa, and Ariel Sharon. As a part of the Israeli plan of Southern Command, Sharon was ordered to capture the road junction at Abu Ageila in order to gain access to the central route into the Sinai Desert. The Egyptians had taken considerable preparations to prevent a breach there. Egyptian defenses had focused on the Katif Plateau to the east of Abu Ageila, roughly 25 kilometers from the Israeli border. The defenses were an important part of the overall defense plan, called Kahir, in the preparations for the expected war, later known as the Six-Day War. Strength of opposing forces: Israeli troops numbered about 14,000. Egyptian troop strengths have been estimated at 8,000. More importantly, the Israelis had significant advantage in armor against 66 Egyptian World War II-era T-34 85s with 85mm guns, and 22 Su-100 with 100mm guns. The Israelis pitted a total of 150 modern tanks, AMX-13s with 75mm guns, as well as 100 Centurions and Super Shermans, armed with 105mm guns. The guns used by the Centurions were the Royal Ordnance L7 tank guns, specifically made to defeat the T-54, a tank more modern than both types of tanks used by the Egyptians in this battle. On the other side, the best tank gun available for the Egyptians, used by the 22 Su-100 tank destroyers, was a late WW2 artillery piece overmatched by Centurion's front armor. As a result, in addition to numerical superiority, the Israeli tanks also had a greater effective range than their opponents. A list of units involved. Israeli forces: 1 Mechanized Reconnaissance Battalion, the 14th Armored Brigade, 1 Independent Tank Battalion, 1 Infantry Brigade, 1 Brigade of Paratroopers, 6 Artillery Battalions, 1 Battalion of Engineers. Egyptian forces: 2nd Infantry Division, 12th Infantry Brigade, 37th, 38th, 39th Infantry Battalions, 51st Artillery Brigade, 330th, 332nd, 334th Artillery Battalions, 2 anti-aircraft companies, 1 anti-tank rocket company. Attached to 12th Brigade, 6th Tank Regiment, 288 Tank Battalion, 1 Mechanized Anti-Tank Battalion, 352nd Infantry Battalion, 299th Artillery Battalion, 336th Medium Artillery Battalion. Notes: Egyptian tank regiments were composed of 2 tank battalions. Egyptian artillery totaled 70,122mm and 152mm artillery pieces. The Egyptian defenses: the Egyptian defense was constructed as follows. The 2nd Infantry Division prepared defenses in the area between Abu Ageila and Qusayma, with the center placed at the area Katif Plateau, Ruafah Dam, with the 12th Infantry Brigade defending Katif and the 10th Infantry Brigade Qusayma. Katif made a good position, because it was bordered by an area of sand dunes to the north and Rocky Mountains to the south. On this plateau, the Egyptians constructed 3 parallel trenches of about 5 kilometers each, reinforced by concrete bunkers. Every trench was defended by an infantry battalion, with the forward trench reinforced by a dug-in tank squadron. To the rear were 2 supporting artillery battalions, behind them the balance of 288th Tank Battalion ready to counter-attack. To the north, blocking the Batter track at position 181, were 38th Infantry Battalion, 299th Artillery Battalion and an anti-tank company of 10 Su-100. They were to protect the flank of the main position to the southeast. 5 kilometers to the west of the Katif Plateau perimeter was the Ruafar Dam. Dug in here were the 352nd Infantry Battalion, and the 332nd and 336th Artillery Battalions. 5 kilometers to the northwest of Abu Ajila, at the Wellam Logistics Center at Avlad Ali. The balance of the 6th Tank Regiment was positioned to block enemy forces coming from the northeast or against the positions of the 12th Brigade to the east or southeast. To the east in front of the 12th Brigade positions on the ridge at Tarafah was an outpost manned by an infantry company of 38th Battalion, a squadron of tanks from 288th Battalion, and 2 B-10 recoilless guns. At position 239, south of Tafara was a platoon of 37th Infantry Battalion, with 2 B-10 recoilless guns and 2 anti-tank weapons. Further east at Tarat bases near the Israeli border was the 2nd Reconnaissance Battalion, which was to give warning of any Israeli attack. The Israeli attack plan was based on intelligence gathered 2 days before the war started, which indicated Katif was defended by only 1 infantry battalion. Based on this information, the Israelis planned a frontal attack by their reinforced independent tank battalion. After aerial bombardments, this tank battalion started its attack on Katif on the 5th of June at 08:15 hours. The attack came to a halt, however, due to resistance from an unknown Egyptian formation and an unknown minefield, causing the loss of 7 Israeli Centurions. New orders for the independent tank battalion were to break off the attack and to attack from the north, through the sand dunes. Now the 14th Armoured Brigade was ordered to attack frontally further south. After a short aerial bombardment, this attack commenced at 12:30, but was forced to a halt as well. Now that strength and positions of the Egyptians were known, General Sharon changed his plans. The independent tank battalion was ordered to drive through the sand dunes following a camel path and attack the Egyptian armor at the Ruafar Dam. At the same time, the 14th Armoured Brigade would attack from the east. However, before this could happen, Katif would have to be taken, a task given to Sharon's infantry brigade, held in reserve up till then. This infantry attack was to occur under the cover of darkness, following a secondary approach to Katif through the sand dunes. Meanwhile, the Israeli armor would provide support and all Israeli artillery would be used in support of this attack. This meant there would be no suppressing fire on the Egyptian artillery, making the Israeli infantry extremely vulnerable. It was decided that the Egyptian artillery would be taken out of action prior to the attack using the brigade of paratroopers. However, with only 6 helicopters available, only a limited number of units could be used. Meanwhile, the independent tank battalion was engaged by the Egyptian defenders in the sand dunes by 1600 and were able to continue to their positions near Abu Ajila and the Ruafar Dam at 1800. The infantry brigade was in place at around 2,300 while the paratroopers, after being discovered and fired upon by Egyptian artillery, made it to their attack positions at 2,300. The attack started at June 5, 2400 hours. After the Israeli artillery had been firing from 2330–2400 hours with Israeli tanks moving into position under the noise of the artillery. After heavy fighting, the Israeli infantry battalions broke through the trenches at Katif, with 1/3 of them cleared by 0230. Now the engineers started clearing away through the minefield which was completed at 0400, allowing the 14th Armoured Brigade to roll onto the Ruafar Dam. At 0700, the Israelis attacked the Egyptian tank battalions and anti-tank battalions from 2 sides, with the Centurion tanks of the 14th from the east and the Super Sherman tanks from the west. After 3 hours of fighting, these Egyptian units were destroyed, after which remnants of the 12th Egyptian Brigade were cleared. At around 1200, the road junction at Abu Agila was in Israeli hands and the road to the Sinai was open. The battle ended with 40 Kia and 19 tanks lost for the Israelis, and 4,000 Kia and 40 tanks lost on the Egyptian side. Aftermath. The victory at Abu Agila meant the road to the central Sinai was open for the Israelis, and Sharon and his forces in particular. Many of the Egyptian units remained intact and could have tried to prevent the Israelis from reaching the Suez Canal. However, when the Egyptian Minister of Defense, Field Marshal Abdul Hakim Amer, heard about the fall of Abu Agila, he panicked and ordered all units in the Sinai to retreat to the west bank of the Suez Canal within a single day. There was no plan for the retreat, so the units left behind heavy equipment, and sometimes even outpaced their commanders. This resulted in the Israelis racing to capture abandoned sites, and obtaining significant amounts of abandoned weaponry. The withdrawal order effectively meant the defeat of Egypt. By June 8, 1967, most of the Sinai area had been occupied by Israeli forces.